Hello, how's it going? Welcome aboard. Okay, this is another one of our kind of learning 3ds Studio Max sets. Okay, this is nothing high level, nothing that's going to challenge you. It isn't an end-to-end project, so it's not going to frighten the crap out of you. What we have is our Open 3ds Max, and I'm going to talk to you and show you a bit about particle flow. Now, for those of you who've never used particle flow before, or who wonder what it is and why they should use it, in the old days of 3ds Max, we had only a few different kinds of particle systems. There was this one, which is the snow system, which, as you can imagine, was good for creating things like snow particles, notice the drifting, and you could also use it to create rain and things like that. We had the spray system, like so. And we had the super spray, which was about the most complicated system. And you could kind of adjust this one to do different things for making fountains or basic water and stuff like that. Now, several releases ago, around about, I think it was Max 7? I think it was Max 7, particle flow came out. So what I'm going to do is just show you around particle flow and why it's fun. Okay, so this is your particle flow source, just here, so I'll just click and drag it out. And as you can see, it's just set up a bit like the standard spray system. It's just going to shoot some particles out, and if we hit render, you can see they're just cuboids. Now, there's a lot of things we can do with this. However, if you look in the modifier panel, it doesn't look like there is. I mean, we can move your emitter around and do all sorts of things like that, but apart from that, there's not really a lot that we can seem to be doing to it. But the fun happens when we press this button here, which is our particle view. Okay. Now this is our node-based particle view window, and this allows us to do all sorts of fun things in here that you can't do with the other particle systems. So first of all, let's have a look at what we've started off with. Now, because we've created a particle system just here, we've been given a basic particle source, PF source 001, that's actually this, and our event, which is what's happening in it. And I'll go through that in a second. Now, if we didn't have a PF source, so let's just say I delete this, and you'll notice that now we have these, and I'll just click on them and delete them. I can actually create a new particle source in here anyway, and I can do a preset, an empty or a standard, like that, and then it'll create the particle flow for us just down here. Now, the positioning of this isn't really important because we can position it anyway inside here if we want to. So I'm going to show you a few basic things, but first of all, just move this over here. Now then, something you can do is rename these. That's always useful. So, basic particle system, like so. And this will be renamed to just a standard event. Okay. Now then, in our standard event, as you can see, there's a birth event. The birth event's basically telling it to drop some particles out. And we've got an emit start of 0 frames. Just drag this up a bit. There we go, 0 frames. So it starts here. Emit stop on 30. So it stops there. And an amount of 200. So 200 are going to come out, yeah? Now if you look over here in the modifier panel, you can see that in the viewport at the minute it's set to only showing 50%. We can crank that up to 100 and you'll see every single particle come out if you want. If you've got a lot of particles going on though, it's not always the best idea. Okay? Right, now let's have a look. Position icon by volume. So it's basically the size of this is relevant to the position the particle is coming out of. It's coming out based on the volume of this icon. But we can change it as well to the pivot point, vertices, edges, surface and volume. And the reason that a lot of these start becoming more important is because if we do use the position icon and we're having the particles generated from geometry, then we can space it out evenly amongst the geometry or at specific points. Now speed, again, this is the speed that the particle is going to come out of your system. So if we change this, for example, to 50, and then I select this, you'll see that when I press play, they come out a lot more slowly than if they're at 300. like so. And if you notice here, we're starting to get things called variations, and variations allow us to basically add a bit of diversity to things. So if we have a variation of, say, I don't know, 50 for example, then rewind it, you'll see that some particles are starting to move at different speeds to others, and the more we crank up the variation, the higher the difference in speed's going to be. As you can see, we have some now that are starting to meander, because there's a speed difference of up to 300, like so. Particularly useful for things like drift. And down here, if you look, we also have divergence and reverse, so we can make the particles go backwards, come out the top of this. We can change the direction they go, so random 3D, they just do that. Along the icon center out, icon arrow out. Random horizontal, particularly good for ring bursts, or inherit the previous motion, so the motion that's fed into this will then be inherited and it will continue doing it. And of course we have divergence here, which can make them kind of float apart, like so, as they diverge from the course. Okay, over here we have rotation. Now you're not going to see rotation so well until I enable one of the other ones. So here we have shape, and as you can see we've got all these various different shapes here, and we can affect the sizes and so on, and the scale, and we can have variation, which is nice. So say we have a scale of 100%, we could then have a variation of, say, 50%, although you won't see this until we render. There you go, and you can see some of them are different sizes to others. Very fast rendering on this. However, if we go over here to the display, this allows us to display it in different ways. So see, we can have dots, circles, little lines. Speed lines are always useful. Bounding boxes, asterisks, and useful as long as obviously you don't have too much geometry on your screen, is that one. So now you can see what it's doing. And the good thing about that is now we can change our rotation, as you see. And you can see what it's doing in real time. Random horizontal, world space, speed space, speed space follow. What's interesting is if you go to world space here, you see we're creating some quite interesting shapes. I think you'd agree. I love that shape, it's really nice. I don't even know why. And yes, you can create procedural geometry with this. And interestingly, if you just change your seed amount and your birth seeds, maybe increase the amount to 250, change the speed, add a bit of variation into it. There we go. And you can get all sorts of different shapes like that. I mean, that's just one of the things we can do with it, and we're still only using our basic system that we have here. Okay, so let's have a look at some of the other things that we can do with this. So this is our birth, which generates particles. Okay, now over here we have birth file, which we're not going to deal with today. Birth paint, which uses particle paint for particle generation. Scripts, which allows you to use a max script. Birth texture, this is a nice new one. Okay, it generates particles on the surface depending on the surface's texture. And initial state, okay, which, like it says, makes a snapshot of a particle system. There we go, and then we can copy it across. Now with our standard events here, let's look at some basic things that we can do. So let's just say we've emitted these boxes and they're just dropping out like so. Now what we can do is perhaps just get a simple box like so, and I'm just going to move this out of the way, and let's move this box so it's underneath the particles like so. Okay, so here's our particles all being dropped down, and what's going to happen when the particles hit the box? Well, let's find out. That's right, the particles just drop straight through the box. Which seems a little bit, you know, that's not right. Well, we can make them react more correctly to the box using a very simple system. So, if you go over here to space warps and go to deflectors and pick a U deflector allows us to select any object in our scene and use that to deflect particles. So I'll just click and drag that out and then go to the modifier panel and change its name to box deflector so we know what it is. And then I'm going to pick my object, which is going to be this. Okay, and now with it selected, well, there's nothing happening. Why not? Well, we haven't told particle flow to use this yet, have we? So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to tell particle flow that I want it to identify this and have a collision with it. So if I select collision here, okay, it accepts any deflector type particle space warp, and just drag it to the bottom. Now what I'm going to do is just add my deflector to this. Okay, so there we go. And because I've changed my event, I'm going to rename it to looks for collision. That way we know what it's doing. And if I just push down, you'll see, well, something's happening. They're bouncing off the box and going straight up. Okay, well, did we want them to bounce straight up? Because they're kind of passing through themselves. Well, one of the things we could do, of course, is just angle that a little bit. Maybe just 10% even. Let's bring it this way. And that way, when it comes out, it'll bounce back up the other way again. But it's being pulled off kind of infinite. You see, when it hits it, it's just going off, straight off into space, as if there's no gravity. Now, if we want gravity, or an approximation of gravity, we can go back here again, and go to our forces, and just drag out the gravity modifier, like so. And then, with our gravity modifier here, okay, we can set its strength and its decay and things like this. We're going to use if I just find the right one here, force, and I'm just going to drag this in and just stuff it after rotation. Okay, sorry, I mean drag it out to here. I'm being very silly now. So force 0, 0, 1, and I'm going to just wire this across to here. Now when I do this, you'll notice our geometry starts to disappear, and instead we get these dots just here. Okay, because it's not displaying it as geometry anymore. So if we change it back to geometry, you'll see it's still our boxes, and you'll see that we haven't allocated our force yet. So let's just add our gravity and see what happens. Okay, that's not bad. As you see, it's bouncing again, and now it's only got a small bounce. It's acting as if this stuff's quite heavy, yeah? And when it hits the ground again, it's just falling through. That's because there's no more collision detection for it. As it does this, it's just hitting the ground. There's nothing there to stop it, and it falls through. So what we need to do again is put a second collision detection in, like so, and just assign our deflector one more time, and now you'll see it does that. It kind of bounces on and on forever. There's no decay in it. Don't get me wrong, that's quite cute, but we need a way to kind of slow it down a bit, don't we? Well, let's have a look at our gravity, and if we were to add a little bit of sorry, not gravity, let's just look at our deflector. If we were just to add a little bit of friction to this, now let's see what happens. friction's slowing it down a bit, as you see. You can reduce the inherited velocity a bit, add a bit less bounce to it. Okay, so they're bouncing a little bit and just kind of thudding more than anything really. Let's just add a bit more bounce, a bit less friction so it spreads a bit more. Okay, so we can have them now kind of thudding off there like that. Okay, so let's say that we've got these particles now, and when they get to round about 80, we want to get rid of them. Just let them disperse, kind of pop apart almost. So what we can do here is just put an age test in, like so. So our collision's happening, but when it collides, we're not telling it to do anything else. So it's not going to move on to a next event out of this, it's going to go on to the age test. We're going to rename this now bounce and die. Okay, and for our age test, if we set the age test now to round about 80, but with a variation each way of 10, then when particles get to within 10 of 80 each way, they're going to start vanishing. Okay, and what we can also do is as they come down here and they do their bounce, we can make them move apart from each other as well. So if we use the keep apart and just stick it here, as you see it's pushing them all apart really quite hard at the moment, but we can change the force we're using to considerably less if we want to, and reduce the acceleration limit as well. So that way as they come down, they're kind of spreading more like that. Now if we change the display type, I mean the shape here, to a sphere, this starts to make a little bit more sense as they come down and just kind of thud along the surface, like so. And I'll just close out this system here and zoom in on this one, just so we can kind of see what's happening. And you can see that they come down, they bounce and just spread out slowly. And we can even use drag. If I just press 6 just to open up my particle system. Okay, my hotkey's not working. That's to do with the recording software. There we go. And I just put bounce and die up here. And now if I go over here, just grab a drag force, like so, and add that to my forces list, and the drag will slow things down. It will basically cause drag. So I'll just change the damping to about 15% on all three axes, like so. Just move that like there. And as we can see at the moment, we've got a graphical glitch, thanks 3ds Max. Select this. As you can see, they're all slowing right down by there, they're not moving out much. I can just reduce this a bit, maybe make it 6%. And you won't be able to see it here quite so well, unfortunately, because of this graphical glitch. However, there we go, I'll bring it down to there, just so that you can. As you see, it's just literally thudding into the surface and just stopping. It's not doing much at all, because the drag is preventing it. If I turn off the drag again, you'll see that it's spreading out as it should. Okay, so that's a basic introduction to particle flow and how it works. and why we enjoy using it and stuff. I'll do some more sets on particle flow soon, but this is just to kind of get you started with it and show you some of the benefits of using it. And if you have any questions, of course, feel free to ask on the 3D Palace forums, or if you're watching this via YouTube, just feel free to watch it via the ask questions via the YouTube channel. And hopefully I'll see you on the website. Bye bye for now.